Hello, this is The Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I simply give a conservative perspective about the world around me. As I like to do in the beginning of the podcast with my episodes, mention social media. Social media, I will link that in this episode. And also to add on that, I'm on Substack, and you can find my writing content on Substack. And my audio platforms, I'm on Audible, I'm on Amazon Music, I'm on Spotify for podcasters, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, and I'm looking to grow to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I am on there. Now, this particular episode is about the Books of Blood by Clive Barker. My husband and I are making some commentary about this book, and then also commentary about other things that he wrote and all of that. So let's talk about it and let's get into it. Okay, Clive Barker.
I mean, he is the other side of the world's king of horror.
You mean like the UK European?
Yeah. So, if Stephen King is one side of the coin for the horror coin, Clive Barker is the other. Stephen King is the king of horror here in the States and North America and stuff, and Clive Barker is the king of horror in Europe. And what's funny is they both kind of have like a fantasy epic story that they tell. Stephen King had the Gunslinger series, where Clive Barker wrote Iwo and it's completely outside of the realm of a Hellbound Heart, Cabal, or any of the Books of Blood volumes, any of the horror stuff he's written. It's just this awesome epic fantasy. It's not even an epic fantasy, it's just a high fantasy story that, if anyone hasn't read it, you should. But I'm amazed that it's never been made into a movie or a TV show. Like, they made the Books of Blood into a TV series on Hulu, and they made Cabal into a movie called Nightbreed. They turned a Hellbound Heart into an entire horror franchise.
Yeah, Hellraiser.
And this high fantasy story could be an amazing movie, or actually an amazing TV series, in all honesty, with the progression of the book and just how long the one book is. There's so much that they would have to cut out to even make it a 3-hour long movie. Being a TV series, just progressing through 3, 4, 5 seasons of learning what it is and what's going on, with a set ending, not a series, not a TV series that's intended to run for ever, 500 episodes, but a very subscribed, specific, this is the beginning, this is where it ends, these are all the key stories, all the key points that we have to hit in this. And they could, 3 seasons easy. And hopefully someday, maybe, enough people get it out there, and the phones and Google and Amazon, and they're all listening, so maybe we'll see it someday. But yeah, he's an amazing writer. He's an amazing horror writer, and the stuff he ties into is, it's a little unfair comparing him and Stephen King.
I think right.
They're drastically different.
Yeah, I think So to me, Clive Barker, I see him more along the lines of it's very eloquent how he turns something very sinister into a way that you can feasibly see this as a horror,
Hmm.
and along the lines interlacing um serious topics in a way that makes you sit back and think about the world around you, and it just the brutality that happens, and the tying into the books of blood,
Hmm.
you see all these, it's just it's really imaginative how it is, because it goes through all these um all these what it's tip of the tongue here, like
Stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
but more like um more along the lines of the Twilight Zone, which I
Hmm.
will talk about
Oh
in
yeah,
this
like it's yeah.
in this series that I'm talking about with Halloween
Hmm.
for the month of October. I will talk about the Twilight Zone anthology. To
Right.
me,
Yeah.
that's how I see the
The,
Book of Blood.
well, ideally, they're a collection of short stories.
Right? Yeah.
They're a collection of a lot of the short stories that Clive Barker has written that didn't turn into full books, but are, I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 volumes of the Books of Blood, maybe 5.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't remember, but some of the stories in it, ended up becoming something more and getting made into something more. But they're a single book, but also like volume one of the Books of Blood reads as a here's the beginning, here's the end, and
Mhm.
here's all these stories in
Mhm.
between,
Mhm.
kind of just like an anthology style
Yeah.
movie or TV show of, oh, here's the overlapping story of it,
Mhm.
and it's amazing. But even with uh like Cabal,
Mhm.
which is a horror thriller, like a horror suspense thriller, you have what should be the good guy, what is perceived as the good guy, being this what normal people would perceive as the good guy,
Mhm.
being this horrendous murderer, this
Right.
sociopath who wants to
Mhm.
go cutting through. And you haven't had the opportunity to read Cabal yet,
Mhm.
but you've
Yeah.
seen the movie Nightbreed, and
Mhm.
they're not, just like anything else, they're not exact, but they're not far off.
Mhm.
Like Nightbreed isn't so far off the book of Cabal that you're completely like thinking, why, what the heck, what, why'd you do that? Why are you ignoring all this? They made some changes, but for the most part, there's a lot of it that is actually there. They kind of delete a character who's kind of important in the book, but it's not in a way that upsets you, because I don't even remember. It's been so long since I've seen the movie. I don't even remember if they even mention her character in the movie at all. Excuse me. But, you know, you have the protagonist
Mhm.
who's struggling, trying to figure out why he doesn't fit in, just not fitting in, thinking he's something more, looking, and being called to this place, to Gideon,
Right.
you know, and what's crazy about it is like the undertone, not even the undertone. So when you go to a hotel, there's a Bible, and then there's usually this a Bible in the nightstand.
Mm-hmm.
At hotels, it's called the Gideon Bible.
Mm-hmm.
The Gideon Bible, the Traveler's Bible, and that's what it is. Like the Gideons, this place, Gideon. It's this area for misfits and outcasts, and monsters who have been hunted, and basically all the things that go bump in the night are find refuge here,
Mm-hmm.
and all the misfit people and the people with the darkness in them, but they're not the ones that are evil either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's the true evil is the priest
Right.
that hunted them down, and it's just this awesome outlook that's varies so widely from like a Hellbound Heart, where you have the Hell Priests, which are Pinhead, Chatterbox. Can't even remember all the Cenobites' names, but the Cenobites,
Right.
they don't have a name in the books, and that's one thing that Clive Barker was like. The fact that they gave them collectively a name. He
Mm-hmm.
was like he never even thought of doing it. It wasn't until making the movie that it was. Well, what do we call them? Well, they're Hell Priest. Well, we can't call them Hell Priest. What else? We need something easier than that. Okay, the Cenobites. Yeah, but reading how Pinhead came to be and then seeing it is one of the things that's so amazing. But also, you see this variance between what is evil, but also what is just darkness.
Right. So let me address this. You know, to add on top of what you're saying, and I want to hear what you think. So, um, there is this one story, which upon many stories in books, but where you it goes into talking about New York, goes into you see it's all centered around this guy
Mm-hmm.
and these massive killings are going on just plaguing New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people are afraid, not knowing what to do, or just looking around the corner, who is what. It could be anybody, right?
Right.
And it's really telling this type of story because this is why I think it's telling, because it graphically goes into this person thinking calling themselves the butcher, thinking they're cleansing they're the cleanser of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and to from what I understand, to re re recapture, what's the right term to say, like re-anoint
Mm-hmm.
um the city to cleanse itself to where it needs to be.
Right.
And these people are, I guess, the appeasing the uh demons to cleanse everything. And the main character is witnessing all of this and
Mm-hmm.
not just out of his mind about what, I can't believe this is going on. And I think um the visceral depiction of it ties into the lines of talking about the horrors that go on in society and the um okay, the best way I can say this is you know how cartoon violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one there's I remember there's this one film, this animated film, and this ties a lot of what's going on today with you know, Jerusalem and the
Israel and
Israel
Hamas.
and Hamas and all of these things. So this particular film was animated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's centered around um the brutality of living in a Muslim nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But um now I saw this when I was in college, and the professor was talking about it, and then it is some commentary in the film about it. I wish I could think about the name of the film, but you know, I'm just going to describe it. So the reason why it is animated is to um make it to where you can feasibly pay attention to the realities of violence, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I think this, how it's viscerally written,
Mm-hmm.
is making you alert to, okay, things are not always what it seems. And that it's much, that you have to be aware of this and not, you know, put yourself in a sense of a bubble, and that you have to acknowledge and talk about the adversity of people thinking they are doing things in the name of what's right, but it's
Right.
actually
Well, you know,
demonizing.
and that's one of the things that Clive Barker does really well
Yeah.
in a lot of his books. You know, this that kind of goes back to Iwajika. The people in this story are called cuckoos,
Right.
and we're called cuckoos by fae folk,
Mhm.
by fairy folk, and by the magical creatures. So, unlike Cabal, where technically they're fae folk, they're not. They are magical creatures. They're the boogeyman. They're the werewolf. They're the vampire. They're, you know, all of these things. They're the things of nightmare.
Mhm.
You know, and with especially in the movie of it, they kind of give a tie to the Wizard of Oz. Fairy folk, and the creep, the other side of Oz, the darker side of Oz, which that's another story that's actually, if you read the books, the Oz books, and the multiple books written about it, can they kind of get a little dark there too, and then go back to
Mhm.
being kind of kiddie and childish, and but sometimes they touch on a darkness that is, but in Cabal they touch on a deep darkness of, like, here's the other side. If Oz is heaven, Gideon would be the dark side, the hell side.
Mhm.
Well, in Iwajika, there's the cuckoos, the people, but we
Mhm.
refuse to see. Either we can't or we don't want to. It's easier if we don't. And when we do see the actions of the Fae, we ignore it, or we make it out to be something else.
Mhm.
So there's a point in the book where a giant monster of just meat and flesh, a sentient, boneless flesh monster is going around destroying, trying to kill these Fey folk, and the cuckoo who found them and helped, and is engaging with them and is starting to see. And as he's doing this, the people around see it as, well, it's a tornado in England, which apparently is not very common. And, or the way they make it seem in the book, it's like tornadoes aren't very common. And they might not be. I don't know. I'd have to call up some old military buddies from the Queen's Royal Army, or I guess the King's Royal Army now, but see what they have to say on tornadoes. But they make it seem as if they're not very common, and that's the way the people see this. They see it as a tornado because they don't want to see it as what it really is. And then there's this police officer who, the timing of this book is after the riots in London around the 60s, 70s, when anarchy in the UK was a big thing, and he was this hero there. And there's a point where people start to discover the Fae, and that's the thing. When people see, especially when the masses of cuckoos start to see and start to realize, they're instantly attracted to it and they want it. And the problem is they'll destroy it. And the Fae folk used to be all over the place, and cuckoos were smaller populations and they lived for a lot longer in the stories. But people expand and they let them, and then took over and basically ran them into hiding. And the whole story is about a tapestry that contains all the Fae. Their entire world, everything was put into a tapestry and a rug, I believe it is. And there's a evil Fae who is trying to get it to destroy it and, I guess, absorb all the power. And as the story goes, this police chief, or this police officer guy, when all the people are going, he thinks that they're drugging people, and they're anarchists drugging people, and he's got to stop them for that. But it's just one of those things. Clive Barker is so good at subverting expectations of what you're meant to see.
Right. Yeah. And so,
and just playing in on the fact that the biggest enemies are ourselves. We are our biggest enemies. We are our biggest threat, our biggest danger.
So
the violence within us.
Right. Yeah. So okay, all right. So this is what I'm hearing you saying, and I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm hearing you say. So okay, let's say for instance, there, I'm going to talk about the movie Hellraiser, and then tie this back into the Books of Blood. So there's this, and let me start out with the Books of Blood. Now there's this one short story in the Books of Blood that has to do with this father, and he has two young daughters, and he's intertwined with the demons and everything, and their presence is in the home and everything, and he knows that his daughters are coming back to visit him and all of this, and but he's hiding it, and he just wants to go along normal and then do things normally because he's ashamed and afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in his state of being ashamed and afraid, he is putting them at danger.
Mm-hmm.
He's um, mentally abusing them because he's making them believe that what they sense and what they feel is wrong. It's just all in their mind, but essentially gaslighting them into thinking that this isn't happening. But at the same time, he's calling himself to protect them. And so going back to the movie, the first Hellraiser, right?
Mm-hmm.
The the mother per se in the film, she is an adulterer, which
Mm-hmm.
adultery is happening in the books of blood too.
Mm-hmm.
And she's hiding all of this to um and then she goes a sense of being normal, going on the social appearance of what she needs to do
Mm-hmm.
to seem normal to everyone in her neighborhood, what have you.
Right.
Nothing's wrong, right? Everything is presented in a perfect manner per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, her sins is keep catching up to her because, you know, those who I'm kind of spoiling, but
If
in a
if people haven't
broad
seen
way, people
Hellraiser,
haven't seen that.
yeah, that's hey,
Yeah, and
watch a movie.
watch the movie, and her sin, the way her sins catch up to her, it just destroys her family.
Yeah.
And now what I'm hearing you say is that to face your problems head on, you won't have any more problems to begin with. You just,
Right.
yeah,
Accept that sometimes you're powerless,
right,
and accept that there are things that you can't have
right,
and can't control, and that may be out of your grasp,
mm-hmm,
and you'll be a lot better off than if you try to force something to be yours. You usually end up just destroying it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's one of the big stories. It's one of the things that kind of goes through everything. You know, um, that's kind of one of the takeaways from just about every Clive Barker book I've ever read. From In the Books of Blood, you have the lady who is trying to prove the existence of an
mm,
afterlife, and she
right,
gets the boy
uh-huh,
to come and um, to prove psychic ability and
yeah,
to be a medium, and
mm,
she falls in love with this young guy who I think is like 16, 17 years old,
right,
and have sex with him in an attic, and she idolizes his body, and
mm-hmm,
all of these things, but her urge to prove that an afterlife exists, but also her urge to be with this boy, this young man, which you know it ends up destroying him. It ends up destroying her. And base. I don't want to go too far from that. It doesn't completely destroy him, but it destroys her completely, and
right,
he is forever changed.
right, and
Read the Books of Blood,
yes,
and it's worth. Or even if you watch the Hulu series that they did, I don't know if it's still available on Hulu. Last year or the year before, they did a series of the Books of Blood Volume 1 on there, and they cover this story. But that's one of the things in Cabal, in the movie The Nightbreed, they kind of go through it. the guy's calling for Gideon, and he wants to go to Gideon, and he wants to get there, but he can't. He's alive, and this is a character that's kind of made for the movie, but he basically kills himself and cuts the skin off his face to prove so that the residents of Gideon come for him and take him to Gideon.
Mm.
But the people who the villain character who wants Gideon, who wants to destroy Gideon, can't get to it because he wants it. Well, Boone, when he tries to go in the movie, he can't go because he isn't of Gideon. He's not an evil creature. He's not a creature of the darkness in the movie. And then he gets bit by basically a vampire. And then that then is accepted into Gideon after the fact. But the true evil of it and the destructive force is the force that's trying to make everything be the same, that's trying to take control, that's trying to grasp for things and just accepting that, hey, you know what, there's just some things you can't have, there's just some things you can't control, there's some things you just can't prove.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's something that Clive Barker, yeah, and sometimes there's monsters and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but the monsters never show. Like, Stephen King has this habit of the monsters make people do horrible things,
Right.
and
Okay.
then good people fight the monsters and save things. So it convinces young boys that are pretty villainous, pretty evil, to take it further and pushes them into doing stuff on its behalf. In The Shining, the evilness in the house
pushes the father, and to
right, and
commit horrible acts and
right,
insanity and all
right,
of this
and
thing
then
pushes on the family.
in The Stand,
Mm-hmm.
you have I can't remember his name. You have the villain character who is going and calling people, and he makes them go and do stuff. He tells them, and they're doing it on his behalf. He encourages the debauchery and evil and to go and do it. Well, with Clive Barker, one of the things that's so different and it's really refreshing is evil exists,
but they're
evil's
not pushing that.
Evil's not causing people.
Mm-mm.
People are evil.
Yeah.
Like in the Books of Blood, that in the Hellraiser movie, we'll go with that because more people might have seen it. She is an adulterer, but she's also a sadist and a masochist, and she is adult, having this illicit relationship with the father of his daughter's brother, which is very different from the book, but and he is also a sadist and a masochist.
Yes.
And it's in their pursuit of this adultery and their sadism and masochism that they kill his brother, her husband, and he absorbs his body and blood and flesh and stuff, and they open the gates to hell and bring in their search of this masochism and the ultimate pleasure through pain, and they bring this darkness on themselves, and that's something that is present in Cabal. The main villain, he is a killer. He kills, he chops people up, and he's trying to blame his killings and his stuff on Boone. In the movie, it's a psychiatrist who goes and is doing these things. But when he has this darkness, but he's not a Gideon, and he's going around doing these things and committing these atrocities, and then he finds darkness, and the darkness consumes him.
Mm-hmm.
But people who, because he is evil, but people who are of darkness but are not evil can live through it, which is something, it seems very weird to say, but anybody who understands, it's not something easily explained, but anybody who's lived a life where, darkness is about, can understand that there's a difference between darkness and evil. There's a difference between seeing the shadows and actually being evil. Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, they were evil people, but there are people who have been around evil and seen the darkness of it without actually being it themselves.
So you're saying uh, there's choices in the matter, or it can't, but at the same time, there's not choices. What I'm saying is, okay,
If you
if
pursue the
you
darkness, you're
right,
evil.
right,
But if you're just living knowing that it's around, it doesn't necessarily make you evil.
right,
But that's one of the things, again, where Clive Barker does really good. These people who are around it, police officers
mm,
and other characters in other books that are around the evil, and in their mind they're doing good, but they live surrounded by darkness,
right,
but they're consumed by evil because the choices they make when trying to confront what they believe is darkness, what they believe is evil, and they take actions that are in itself evil, or in pursuit of this darkness,
right.
they do things, they cross a line that
Hmm.
becomes evil. They kill somebody, that they do these things, and then that darkness, that evil actually comes for them.
Now, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's kind of relevant. I just want to add a little more of a, um, you know, some more perspective about this. So, and the Watchmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rorschach, it's depicted in an honest way. Well, in the comic book, because um, I saw the film, but I only saw it once, and it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of washy with the memory.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, for the comic book, Rorschach, the way he is seen, as a he's protecting humanity by being a superhero. He's not seen as someone that's a well person.
Right.
And the fact of going into the honesty of the darker side that can happen with being having this superhero complex of uh, um, being a superhero, um, just being able to say, well, if you're not being if you're not able to ground yourself in the realms of reality of what is this for, or you're just grounds in the realm of reality of I must do this because it's um a means of to make people right and fit things right from this, that, and the other, or uh, I'm the superior complex to fix everything when I'm not looking within myself to see what I can fix within myself to not have these tendencies, you know. Um,
Right.
and I think that Clive Barker is addressing what a lot of people don't. But I mean, there's people that talk about it, but a lot of people don't, unfortunately, talk about that. It's good to be. It's sad, but it's good to um have the understanding of darkness and have seen the darkness, but you want to hold on to the goodness and to make it better, but you don't want to completely lose yourself or give into it.
Right. Well, I would I say it like this. I would rather have police officers who have been in fights as kids, who had run-ins with police as kids, who, not criminals, but have been in trouble,
Yeah,
you know,
okay. Yeah.
than I would with the guys who never did anything wrong, always followed the rules, always the goody two shoes who's never been in a fight, never been punched in the mouth, never, you know, never had a run in with police, never got accused of doing something, wrong by the police and had to prove, and had to be proved that they didn't actually do it, or seen that dark side of stuff, you know, because the difference is going to be the guys who have never had a experience with police that was bad, never had a run in with them when they were young and saw how they could be dicks and assholes and just completely ignore everything you say just to try to get you to say what they want you to say or try to get what they want or just do what they want, at their absolute refusal to listen and understand, as well as uh you know never been in a fight, never been in a serious confrontation. Those guys are the guys that when they become police, they get an ego. They think, well, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy. Us, we are good guys, you're the bad guys. If you're not us, you're them. And those are the guys who, when someone's upset and angry, aren't going to be able to talk them down. They're going to be nervous. They're going to be on the edge because they're expecting something to happen that they've never experienced before. They're expecting that they might get hit. They're expecting, and they don't know how they're going to handle it because they've never been hit. They
Mm,
have an idea of what they might do,
mm,
but that idea, until it's been proven, you don't know. If you've never been punched in the mouth, you don't know if you're going to hit back. You don't know if you're going to stand there and just in shock or run away. And that's one of the things. That's where I think a lot of unlawful uses of force occur. You get these guys who have never experienced it, and something happens, and then they go too far because they don't know what to do, or they had never experienced it before becoming a police officer, and then they get a little aggressive with somebody, and then they realize, I like this.
mm. Yeah.
Because here's the thing, someone who's been in confrontations when they were young,
Mhm.
who finds out I like this,
Mhm.
usually ends up ruining any chance that they would ever have of possibly becoming law enforcement, military, anything like that, any position of power. They usually end up ruining that for themselves.
Mm.
But the people who never had that experience, when they discovered that they like it in a position where they have a lot of power, well, guess what? They usually turn into being that person who abuses it. And
Mm.
then, on the offhand, the people who've never had run ins with police who become police, when
Mm.
they're talking to someone and that person's trying to tell them, hey, look, man, cut me some slack? Could you please cut me some slack? I understand that's this. They have this idea. No. Why should I trust you? Why should I believe you? Why? No, you need to listen to what I'm saying because I'm the police. And they don't realize that the stuff they're doing is what gives people the bad impression of police. They think that they're just doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And they don't realize they've never had a run-in with a cop who told them to sit down and shut the F up. That you have to do what I say. I don't need to listen to you. There's nothing you can tell me. You're telling me you know my job better than me. It's like, yeah, you don't know everything. And when I'm telling, so when I was a kid in high school, me and 3 buddies went to a volleyball game. Don't know why we went. Like, we were bored. There was a volleyball game at the high school. We went to it. We sat there for like 20, 30 minutes, got bored, started getting hungry, wanted Whataburger, and left and started walking down. Well, apparently somebody thought that for some reason we broke into their car the night before or a couple of nights ago. Somehow, some way, beats the heck out of me. Do not know. Anyways, they start following us, and we notice this car drive past us like 6 or 7 times as we're walking probably the 2-3 miles from the high school to the Whataburger. So this car just keeps passing us and passing us and passing us. And this lady in it, we see her, and we all notice her, and we're starting to like get paranoid about what the heck is this person following us for? Why do they keep driving past us? Why are they looking at us like this? What is going on? We get into Whataburger, and we notice they're parked across the street at, that's like a Walgreens, or it was a CVS at the time, or an Eckerd's is what it was at the time.
Go on, please.
So, anyway, so we go in, and we order food, and, I was working at the time. I had gotten my first job. I was working at Albertsons. I was like, hey guys, I got it. I'm going to pay. And anybody who's ever been to Whataburger, or anybody who's ever been in the South to Texas, or, it's basically the only place where you can really find Whataburgers, they're expensive. Whataburger is not cheap.
Yeah, Whataburger is a Texas thing, right?
Yeah. I think there's a few in maybe in like Oklahoma and stuff, but
yeah, but I think it was housed in Texas.
You're really not going to see it too many outside of Texas.
Yeah.
So we're in there, and we order our food, and we're waiting on it, and then all of a sudden 3 cops come in. 3 of the local police come in. And they're like, y'all need to come outside and talk to us right now. Like, can we get our food, please? Because no, y'all need to get out here right now and talk to us now. And then start pulling us out of the restaurant where we're waiting for our food. And so we're outside, and they go, sit down on the curb now. We're like, whoa, hey, what is going on? Give us your IDs now. Yo, what is going on? Shut up. Just give me your IDs right now.
Okay.
So pull out my driver's license and give it to them, and my buddies pull out theirs, and they handle them. They're like, what is going on? They start writing down our information, and they're like, where were y'all last night around this time? I was like, I was at work. I got off at 11. What is this about? So which one of y'all broke into the car? What are you talking about? We didn't break into anything. They're digging in, telling, every time they start trying to ask us a question and try to answer, they tell us to shut the F up. Like, we know you did it. We've got witness. They've already pointed you out. Like, my friends, they're brothers, one a little bit older, one younger, they weren't working yet, and they were like, we were at home. The problem is, the person that they pointed out was me. The person they were saying, and they thought that they might have been with me when it happened, because they left with me. and they said that the person who broke into the car had other people with them, but they didn't get a look at them. But they knew for a fact that it was me who broke into their car. And again, I'm 16 years old, and I had an idea since kindergarten. I was going to join the military, serve in the military, and then become a police officer. Ever since kindergarten, that was what I planned on doing, and I did that. But at 16, I'm having this run-in, and I had interactions with police before that weren't the greatest, but also weren't this bad.
Yeah, and you told me this story before, but it just boggles me. I can't. It's unbelievable. It's just.
Well, and see, that was the thing. I was like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I was at work last night, all night. They told me, hey, we were at home. My parents are there. They can tell you we didn't leave. I was at work until 11, and I didn't. I got out of school, went to work till 11. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who said they saw what, but they're lying to you. Mm-hmm. And we're underage, so don't you need to call our parents? They're like, that's fine. No, we don't. We don't need to call anybody. You're fine. And it's like, well, at that point, they're like, if you keep running your mouth, we're going to put you in handcuffs. I was like, you're not going to put me in shit. And they put us all in handcuffs. Well, about that time, my friend's mom, she drives by and sees that these police have us standing outside of Whataburger in handcuffs. And they put us in handcuffs, and she pulls in, what's going on here? And they're like, ma'am, this is none of your business. You need to leave. And she's like hell I do. Those are my sons and their friend. What is going on here? And she's like, get them out of the handcuffs now. They're all underage. And she's like, did y'all tell them we all were underage? And we're like, yeah. Are they questioning y'all? Yeah. Without an adult around? And we're like, yeah. And at that point, this was a voluntary conversation. And she goes, in handcuffs? And they, get him out of the cuffs, get him out of the cuffs. The sergeant, the guy, I guess the main guy who was being the biggest dick was, get him out of the cuffs, gets us out of the cuffs. We're releasing you and her. A detective will be there to contact you. Y'all need to leave. And I was like, well, we just ordered food. Can we get our food? No, y'all need to go. Well, can I get my money back? No, just leave. And I'm looking at her, and she's like, come on. And hey, I just, spent $45 here. Can you please go and get our money back? Long story short, the Whataburger completely refused to give us our money back and stuff. I think they actually gave our food to the police officers because I asked her to at least get our food, and they said they didn't have it and they couldn't give the money back because we never even got a chance to get my receipt for what I had ordered. And yeah, so anyways, the next day at school, I get called down to the principal's office, and I go in, and there's a detective. He says, I'm a detective. I can't even remember his name, for the River Oaks Police Department, and I'm investigating this. I need to talk to you about this. And I was like, well, you need to call my parents. And he was like, no, you don't have to have your parents here. And I was like, I'm underage, I'm a minor. He's like, yeah, but the teachers are here. I was like, I don't care if they're here. You need to call my parents. You need to get a hold of my parents. I'm not talking to you. And he's like, okay, well, you don't have to talk. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you this. We suspect you of breaking into a vehicle and stealing all of these things from a vehicle and stealing stuff from a vehicle on this night. Do you have any proof of where you were? I was like, you can call my job and find out that I was there and I never left. I never clocked out that entire time. Well, how were they able to point you out? I was like, point me out in the yearbook that you have opened up to my face. I was like, did you hand them the yearbook? Or did you have it already opened up to the page that had my face and the two guys I was with's face, because our names were so close together and our school was so small, we were on the same page. And he was like, well, that's none of your business. I was like, this wouldn't happen to be the lady who followed us around for 20, 30 minutes, driving past us about 7 or 8 times, who sat there across the street from the Whataburger while the police had us out in handcuffs staring at us the entire time. Would it? That wouldn't be the lady who pointed us out, because I'm sure she absolutely recognized me after that. Did you check to make sure of any of that? I was like, did you try to verify what I told the police who I talked to yesterday? I was like, and before I answer, any more questions, if you're not going to call my parents, y'all need to let me go back to class. The principal just kind of looked, shrugged. The detective was like, we'll be calling your parents and we'll be in contact with you later today. I was like, well, better be before 5, because I've got to be at work when I get out of school. And, I didn't bring up the fact that I got out of school early for work release or anything. So, that day I didn't have work anyways, but got out of school, got home, called my mom, told her what was going on. She said, okay. She comes home. Detective shows up at my house, says, I need to search your room. I need to search this house. Well, I was like, okay, for what? And he gives her a list of things that he's searching for. And I was like, do you have a search warrant or anything? He says, I don't need one. Your mom just gave me permission. I can search this house for whatever I want. He goes into my room, starts searching through stuff, and I have change and money. And he takes it. I go, what are you doing? He was like, this is stuff that was reported stolen. I was like, they know.
Money?
I was like, change and money in a jar was reported stolen. Like some loose change. I was putting, pennies and stuff in jars and loose change in jars. But I had on my nightstand, because I was rolling it into stuff to go and take it to the bank and put it in my bank account. But, I had some loose bills from when I cashed my paycheck. And I was like, can you prove it? Do they have the serial numbers off the dollars? Did they tell you exactly how much and what denominations of change were stolen? I was like, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're not taking my stuff. And he starts looking through and he grabs my work badge and he's looking at it and takes photos of it. And then he's, going through and looking through my CDs and taking photos of my CDs.
What?
And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you looking for? He was like, well, these are all things that were reported stolen. I was like, so change? My work ID from Albertsons? Well, not that. It was a Lockheed Martin entry pass. Okay. So someone's work ID for Lockheed Martin that I'm supposed to use to what? Try to get into Lockheed Martin? Like, have you called Lockheed Martin to have them canceled? Like, what are you doing? I was like, I told y'all last night, yesterday, and I told the police officers yesterday, I was at work. Did you ever call my job to validate? We'll get to that. I was like, why don't you do it now? I was like, here, I'll do it for you. I called my boss, put her on speaker. I was like, Miss Francois, I'm here with a police detective who thinks that I broke into someone's house or into someone's car 2 nights ago. Could you please tell them where I was? She was like, you were here until 11. Did I leave at all during my shift? No. Can you please fax a copy of the schedule to the River Oaks Police Department, please? Sure. She does it. I hang up. I was like, you should have done this before your police even had any contact with me. Don't tell us how to do our job. Oh, okay. He leaves. Nothing. 2 months later, the lady whose son also went to our school starts cussing me out front of the school getting in my face as she dropped off her son, yelling and screaming, "I don't know how they haven't arrested you yet after you broke in and stole the stuff from my car." Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who told you this. I don't know what. You're fucking crazy. You need to leave me alone. She goes to grab me. Well, anyway, school resource officer shows up, tells her she needs to calm down, she needs to leave. I was like, no, I want to press charges. Just go inside. Like, she grabbed me. Just go inside. Okay.
Just go inside.
Right.
You're harassing a child.
Exactly. Well, turns out, it took 9 months or so for them to actually tell me, and it wasn't until I turned 17 and went to join the Army that I actually found out. And the only reason I really found out is because when I was enlisting, they're like, "Hey, is there any trouble that you've had that could cause a problem?" And I was like, "Well, some police detectives came and searched my house not that long ago, trying to say that I broke into something that I didn't." They're like, "And what's going on with that?" I was like, "I don't know. Is it an active investigation? I don't know." And they're like, "Well, hey, before we can really do anything, we need to find out." So I had to go to the police department and say, "Hey, what's going on with this? Because I'm trying to join the military and they don't want to proceed with anything until I figure out what's going on with this." "Oh, the investigation's been dropped." I was like, "And y'all couldn't tell me any of this?" "Well, you didn't need to know." I was like, "It's an investigation into me. Y'all came and searched my house. Y'all did all this." So, after this whole encounter and, a lot of other encounters with police, getting pulled over. So, got off work at 11 o'clock, went to eat dinner. And after eating dinner and everything, because I worked it was a Friday night, and worked from 2:30 until 11, and so was hungry, went to eat dinner, stopped at a fast food, I don't know, like McDonald's or something, went inside, sat there, ate, driving home, get pulled over by local police officer, and he says, "You're out past curfew." And I was like, "Well, what'd you stop me for?" He's like, "Well, you're out past curfew." Like, "How do you know I'm out past curfew?" He's like, "Well, you don't look old enough." He takes my driver's license and stuff, writes me a curfew ticket on my way home from work. And I was like, "What?" "Okay, sure." Get home, tell my parents, we call, set a court date, go to court. I was like, explain to me how I can be written a curfew ticket in my own vehicle. Well, curfew is set for 10:30 for anybody under the age of 18. I was like, I was in my vehicle driving home from work. I don't get out of work until 11. He pulled me over because I looked too young. How can he tell whether or not I'm 18 just by looking? And the judge was like, "Well, we're just going to go ahead and just dismiss this ticket, and we're not, you won't have to pay court fees or anything." Uh-huh. So he signed all the paperwork, but they never filed it. So here's what's funny. Fast forward years to me becoming the police officer. I got my first job as a police officer was at this city.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to the chief, talking to the police officers and stuff that are doing the board interview. "Hey, yep, you got the job. Let's go eat lunch." Okay. Go eat lunch. Go back. They start doing all the paperwork, and they're like, "Hey, you got an unpaid ticket that needs to be resolved with us. And we can't actually hire you until the ticket's taken care of." I was like, "A ticket?" I was like, "Dude, I've been gone for like 5-6 years. What are you talking about? A ticket? I don't have no tickets." They're like, "Yeah, it's from, this time, back when I was, 16, working at Albertsons before I joined the military and stuff." And I was look at it, and I was like, dude, this is a curfew ticket that was dismissed by the judge. I was like, y'all need to get y'all's records because, like, I went to court, and they look at the name. They're like, Jay Smith. Yeah, he still works here. And they call him up. They're like, hey, did you write this ticket? And he looks at it. He's like, I guess. Look at the date. He's like, this is forever ago. And they're like, how? And he's like, you wrote a traffic ticket. You wrote a curfew ticket. And you have vehicle information on here. And he's like, yeah. He's like, was this the kid you wrote the ticket to? And he looks at me and he's like, yeah, what the hell? And they're like, yeah, we just hired him as a police officer. Why is this ticket still filed in here? And they're like, one, how did it never get turned into a warrant? Two, where's the dismissal paperwork? And he was like, it wasn't dismissed. He's like, he's saying it was dismissed with the judge in court. No, he never showed up. Hold on. The chief makes a call, calls the judge, starts going through paperwork, pulls out his copies of the dismissal stuff. Yep, here it is. Here's all the paperwork. Well, we don't know what happened. Yep. Fast forward another 3 or 4 months, the chief, the detective, that officer, and about 3 other officers all got fired for misconduct. But, it's one of those things. One of the guys who got fired was that guy who never got into a fight. He went to karate, practiced karate, but never actually got into any type of confrontation outside of karate, outside of, learning karate when he was younger. He never had any bad run-ins with police, but when he became a police officer, he loved the power. He loved being able to push on people, and he realized he liked having power over people and liked being able to push on people, and took advantage of it, and ended up, ending his career. And it really, because thinking of this and thinking of the book, the police officer, the police chief, and a lot of the officers that it goes through, that it follows in the book Iwo Jima. And if anybody knows the actual pronunciation of this book, it's one of those things. It's got a lot of letters that don't make sense being next to each other. But the chief, or the main sergeant, and all the guys under him are just drunk on the power and just want to do the shit. But when they're actually confronted, they don't know what to do. They can't figure it out, and that's what it is. But it's that darkness. It's that idea of, I've got power and I like this and I'm going to pursue this, and it's that which takes people to hell. And that's something that Clive Barker does. That I've got this power and I'm going to use this power and I'm going to take advantage of this to make myself and to make people acknowledge me and my power. I want this pain, and I'm in the old search for the ultimate pain, which is pleasure. They find hell. They're in darkness. They're surrounded by darkness, but instead of just saying, "Hey, it is what it is," they search for more and they dig deeper into it, and they find hell.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Well, appreciate your insight. I appreciate all your honesty and everything else with this. I really appreciate it. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. As I like to say, tune in and turn up. Bye-bye now.